Fools.
Balrogs Blastbeats!
For another week, that is, I'm leaving that in there. That's how we're starting it. Margy yelling into the wind, Balrogs and Blastbeats. That was absolutely perfect. This right here is the nerdiest podcast that ever there was, the coolest uncool. I am one of your hosts, Josh Redbeard.
I'm Margy. I like to yell.
And I'm Grant, and I'm laughing at everyone else. As always, I'm going to take us into the nerdiest thing that we've done this week. This week, I've found a YouTube channel called Team APS. I know you two aren't really into Yu-Gi-Oh, but they are Yu-Gi-Oh content creators. They are. So the first episode or the bit of content I've seen that they've made is they're getting the prof, like the professor from the Tolarian Academy, is a Magic YouTuber. Essentially, they did a trade-off where Prof did an episode where he got these Yu-Gi-Oh guys to read Magic cards and guess if they were, if this is a good Magic card, is this a bad Magic card? And then, so he'd have like stuff like Rhystic Study, and then like a really bad like multicolored creature spell and stuff like that, and they'd have to guess if it was good or not. But then they did the inverse where Prof came on and was reading Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have like fucking like type 2 size text boxes. Like there's some Yu-Gi-Oh cards have so much text on them that like they've abbreviated like whole terms, or like your graveyard now on a card is just written GY because there's not enough room left to put on.
Oh my god.
A caption in there because the like power creep over the years is extended so far. Like to have a new effect, it just has to be a fucking first page of a book in there.
Amazing.
But the series that really caught my attention is if anyone that's listening to this has watched Yu-Gi-Oh, there's these characters called Rare Hunters in the show. And essentially, they come up to this tournament where if you beat someone, you get to take their rarest card.
Oh,
So
rude.
They've started this series called the Rare Hunter series, and they're going like chronologically through. They've bought like a original box of like the first ever Yu-Gi-Oh set, and then they open half of the box each, make a deck, and then they both play each other, and the winner gets the rarest card that they got from their half of like the booster box. But then in the next episode, they take the same cards and build upon them with the next chronological set. Oh, yeah. And so that every week they're adding adding like a rare card to their deck, and it's actually like compounding. So like for the first 3 episodes, like the same dude was winning because obviously every week he won the rarer card, and then he's got two A level cards and then 3 A level cards. I thought it was interesting because, like, first of all, like Yu-Gi-Oh's evolved so much that it's unrecognizable to me. But because they're playing with the original cards, like they're really bad, and the cards are really bad. They're playing by the original rules, so there's like no ban list or anything like that. So it's it's weird seeing like Yu-Gi-Oh go for like the same amount of time as a Magic game, whereas like Yu-Gi-Oh these days is a long game if it goes past like 3 turns each.
It adds such a different stakes to it, because if I think about it, like if I was playing a game of Magic knowing that if I lost, someone was going to take a card of mine, I'd be like, no, I don't know. I'd like
absolutely not.
Yeah, I'd be too scared.
Yeah, my precious, no.
Well, especially since like the first box that they opened it's the Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, that like 2002 set, and they actually got a first edition Blue Eyes White Dragon in it, which if it was a PSA 10 is worth, what I'm looking at is $500,000.
Jesus.
But I don't think theirs was in that good of condition. But it probably was still like, I'd say like the card that he had to put up was probably worth, I'd say like $5,000.
That's insane.
Oh,
versus
so uncomfortable.
The other guy.
I don't own anything that's $5,000.
The other guy.
That's so much money.
Yeah, the other guy had a secret rare Trihorn Dragon, and that's on eBay for like $250.
Even that, I'd be like, if like
Yeah.
any of my cards that are that expensive, no, I don't want to risk that.
No, thank you. I'd be too
But-
emotionally attached.
I do get the feeling that this first set, they've just re-released it again with all the original cards, and maybe that's what they opened.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure, but because obviously, like, they didn't seem as excited as I thought they would be opening an original first edition Blue Eyes, and I don't remember it saying first edition next to it. So I think that, but even then, like that Blue Eyes would be worth a couple hundred regardless.
Yeah.
And like that's the fact that that's the stakes that they're like that they're playing with. But like it's all like it's not like they've put their own money into it. Like the channel's like pretty profitable, so I think like it's channel money. So
yeah,
it's not like they have like an actual connection to those cards because in reality, it's not like they're good.
Can we
Like
we make channel money so we can gamble like this?
Yeah,
we're slowly working towards that.
Yeah.
Slowly.
But I guess it's that that content and spending that money is, you know, to make content, I guess. But yeah, it just made me imagine like it'd be so weird doing something like that playing Magic.
Yeah.
Because like first of all, the hit rate on good cards in Magic is nowhere near what it is in like an old Yu-Gi-Oh set. Like you just like if you were to get like a proper decent money card in Magic, I feel like it's rare unless you're getting like their stupid busted fucking $50 pack that's just I just refuse to buy it because it's stupid. But like yeah, the amount of stuff like every box that they got and they opened, they pretty much found the rarest card in that set. Or like the rarest 2 or 3. And it's just weird seeing how far just like card games have changed. Like from the original of like it was for fun and now it's like really heavily to like make a lot of money and leverage the secondary market against what booster packs are now released with to make money from them as well by saying, hey, these premium cards are only in these $50 packs. If you want a better chance of getting this $50 pack to sell that card, you're going to have to buy the big money packs instead of it just being up to chance and anyone getting a $5 pack can get a good card, which is what it used to be like.
Oh.
And that's just every card game now because when all these, you know, properties started coming out, like the secondary market wasn't as much of a factor as it is now.
Yeah, but now that they know that like they've got the whales, they've got the people that are willing to spend so much money on it that they'll just milk it for all they can.
And that's how you get Magic 30th edition. Basically fake cards.
Yeah.
Fake cards for $900 a pop. Hell yeah. Why not?
Yeah, boy.
How about you, Margy? What's the nerdiest thing you've done this week?
I have started reading a new series. I'm reading the first book in the series called The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. And it's the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy. It's a science fantasy novel, so you've got fantasy elements and then you've got the sci-fi future dystopia sort of elements. Female author, love it. Won the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 2016, so you know it's good. I'll read some of the blurb for you. I'm like, how do I do this without spoilers? This is the way the world ends. Again, 3 terrible things happen in a single day. Essen, a woman living in an ordinary life in a small comm, comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. Meanwhile, mighty Sanze, the world-spanning empire whose innovations have been civilization's bedrock for 1,000 years, collapses as most of its citizens are murdered to serve a madman's vengeance. And worst of all, across the heart of the vast continent known as the Stillness, a great red rift has been torn into the heart of the earth, spewing ash enough to darken the sky for years or centuries. So it's there's a lot going on, and a very cool element of it is that it has motherfucking earthbenders in it. Kind of they're called origins, and they do some kind of like kinetic manipulation to control Earth, which is really fucking cool. And you know, in like this post-apocalyptic world where, you know, like a volcanic eruption creates a 5th season that lasts for, you know, a year to a century, it's very useful being able to do that. But it's really cool so far. I'm really enjoying it. She's got a really interesting writing style. And yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. It's a real good plot, and yeah, I'm excited. It's
good. Sounds like my kind of vibe.
It's no Wheel of Time high fantasy level. It's got it's got like the science fantasy kind of thing, so it's less long-winded. Redbeard, what's nerdy and good in your world?
So this week the hyperfixation is too real. I'm actually in a little bit of trouble right now. So I've been playing.
What, did you get the be real? I thought I was trying to be clever. Sorry, that's what kids use these days, isn't it?
I see what you did there. I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4 at the moment, and that was a thing. But then I remembered there's this app that I used to love called Fallout Shelter, and so I downloaded Fallout Shelter.
Oh no!
Don't do it.
I've been really addicted to that for the last probably week as well. And then just yesterday, I watched an 1.5-hour long YouTube video where someone is explaining the lore of every vault that has appeared in not just the Fallout games, but also like the Fallout board game or the Fallout comic. And he explains literally from Vault 1 to Vault 121.
I know this channel. Is this the one where he's got like the dude like sitting in a chair in like the Atom armor?
I can't remember.
In the background as he talks. I'm pretty sure I know.
I literally can't remember, but it came up on my suggestion. I was like, why would anyone want to watch this for 1.5 hours? And then I watched the whole fucking thing, and I learned about every different vault and like all the kind of stuff that goes on behind it with the Enclave. And like I knew bits and pieces of the story of Fallout, but it was really interesting to like hear just how deep the Fallout is and like how like psychotic the company of Vault-Tec is and the Enclave.
Rad King. Was it a Rad King video?
I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But
I just want to point out, Grant, that a dude sitting in a chair is like so many YouTube channels. It's like,
no, it's like
that really narrows it down.
Yeah, no, it's not like a real person. It's just like a character from the game just sitting in a chair. And it's just like his background thing. So I listened to an episode that this guy done. It's just like the lore of all the known countries in Fallout. I'm like, this sounds like the exact same kind of vibe.
Yeah,
like,
it probably is, but it was actually like, it was interesting, if not just to like, because if if you're listening and you haven't played Fallout, you don't know the story. Obviously, like the main story is that there's a big nuclear war and we all ended up in these underground vaults. And then after a while, once, the radiation had come down a bit, people kind of came out. And there's different stories kind of laid out about people that have stayed in vaults or whatnot. But the one thing that's only ever really kind of hinted to until you know the whole story is the fact that it's like the Enclave took over like the kind of the government and everything like that. And then they gave the contract to build these vaults to this company, Vault-Tec. And so Vault-Tec decided to make like all these different vaults, but no vaults were ever the same. And they just used different vaults for different scientific experiments. And so, there's a vault where they're like, they put all these rich people in, but then took away all their luxuries. And they made a vault where there's like 1,000 women and 1 man. There's one vault, my favorite vault. There's a vault that has 10 men, 10 women, and a puma or a panther or something. I think it's a panther. And that's it. That was just a scientific experiment. And so Vault-Tec just went fucking nuts. And all these hundreds of different vaults all have a different like fucked up thing about them. That
or
is
the
just
vault where everyone's called Gary.
Yeah, or the vault where everyone's called Gary. There's a vault where I can't even remember I can't remember half of the other ones, but yeah, it's like, oh, that's really fucked up. Oh yeah, there's one where it's like they all these people went in there and thought it was all normal, but then they just leaked out this gas that just makes everyone turn into psychos just to see what happens. And so
it's not about saving society. It's about doing experiments on people.
Yeah, it was literally about just like doing all these different fucked up experiments on people and just seeing what happens. And so it was really interesting watching this video from that point of view and just like going real deep into the lore of Fallout, realizing that Vault-Tec, like, because you kind of like there's allusions to it, but there's no like confirmed yes, this is what Vault-Tec did until you see the overall umbrella and be like, oh, this is what they did. This is fucked.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah, and so it was really, really fun. But yeah, my Fallout hyperfixation is beyond real at the moment. And I'm really curious what's going on in my Fallout shelter while we're recording this. I'm just like, I could just check, but I'm not going to check. But I really kind of want to check, but I'm not going to check because I am a professional podcaster.
I'm a professional.
And I also like how the fact that all that stuff about the vault like isn't even close. It's not even close to like a side plot. Like it's just like. It's just like something you might have read about in a book for 2 minutes in that game. Like it matters nothing in the game, but just the fact that it goes that deep. and then no half people wouldn't even bother to read it.
No, because I've played all of the Fallouts so many times, and because the stories are never really pieced together, and so it's all just illusions, and it's all like you've got to go into this particular terminal and read this person's particular study to get this note, and this dude literally went to the fact of just like to the most subtle references ever to like stuff that only appeared in like alpha versions of the game that were then removed to like this was Vault 94, but in the final version of the game it's Vault 111 or something like that.
Do you think you wrote a thesis about this? Do you think like
it sounds like it was a thesis?
It's basically a thesis in itself. So
that's impressive. Like, I commend his research and his compilation of valuable information. Matt, that would make such a good plot for a book. I'd read the shit out of that. Like about
it's a really, really good world to build some fucking crazy shit on. But I mean, I guess that's why the games are so successful, because that is the base of the plot. Even though it's never really explained, it's like, all right, this is the world that we've created. So this is what happens now. This is what we're gonna do now. And like some were just completely normal vaults, but others were just like, fucked beyond measure.
This is where you are. What do you do next? And you just do whatever you want from there.
100%. 100%.
That's cool.
We're going to move into the medium beat for this week, and just a time to get some things off your chest with a new medium beat called "What Really Gets My Goat."
What really grinds my gears?
What really grinds my gears? But Grant, you in the group chat, you had a pretty good suggestion, which is fairly topical to the moment, and it 100%. I feel like it gets everyone in this goats,
especially goats. It's got a lot to do with goats.
It does. It does.
That was my goat noise.
So Grant, what's getting you goat this week?
Just everyone complaining about the Knotfest lineup. It's just like, it's not good enough. It's like no festival, especially in Australia, is going to have every band that you love. It's just like, just the cost of the venue is enough for you to guarantee the festival's not making money, let alone getting all the bands over, getting all the stages set up.
Paying all the bands
without having to do another event to pay them with. You see it with Good Things as well. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the Good Things lineup, but I'm not going to complain about it. It's like, it's just not for me. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it not being for me, but just like expecting because you got all the older people complain. It's like, there's too many of these young bands on here. There's only Megadeth playing. And then you got the young people complaining saying, there's too many like irrelevant bands on this lineup. It's like, well, then who is this lineup for? Because
who is this lineup made for? Someone's got to be happy. I'm pretty happy. Like, I think it's good.
I think it's good. It's well balanced. There's enough Australian talent on there. There's enough up and coming talent in Malevolence, Spirit Box. You got some Story of the Year,
Alpha
which
Wolf.
is a bit of a weird.
The story of the year is
the one that stands out.
Like, why? Like, absolutely.
Why not?
I mean, I love story of the year. Don't get me wrong, but it's like on Knotfest, it was a bit.
It does stand out. And Trivium would be sick. Knocked Loose, up and comers. I guess they're pretty established, but they're still like in the grand scheme of things. I'd say they're up and comers. Slipknot obviously has to be there. Bon Jovi's playing second.
Wait,
I'm at Parkway Drive.
I was like, what? Oh, yeah, Stadium Rock.
Parkway Jovi playing it. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, no.
Parkway Drive will be a vibe.
Fantastic live. Yeah, no, it's a good lineup. But I'd love for a Boarded to be playing it or something. But it's Australia. We're not going to get that.
Well, that's the thing is, I saw someone just being like, like the lineup we wanted, the lineup we got kind of thing. And the lineup we wanted was another Knotfest lineup that had like Sabaton and like all these like just like old like bald metal bands, and I was like, I like our lineup better than the one that you've suggested. Like the only band I was like that was on that lineup that was like, there'd be 6. Behemoth, I think, were on that lineup. But then
Behemoth would be.
That guy's like, okay, so I'm gonna post what they listen to in Europe and hope that comes here to the place where most people don't listen to that.
Yeah, it wouldn't sell here. Like the lineup that they were posting, I was like, no one cares about those bands in Australia. Like, I wish that they did, but it's like, no, the lineup we got is better for our market, and in my opinion, is a better lineup. I was like, cool, man. It hasn't catered to your very, very specific and niche tastes. Like,
so I'm not going to go, and I'm going to complain that there's no festivals,
and then they're going to complain that it's too expensive. Like, I don't know how much tickets are yet.
I think they're $200.
Yeah, that's all right. Why not? Like,
Well, what does it cost to? What is where is it? Is it at the
Be like
showgrounds?
the showgrounds of Flemington or something like that.
So how much does that cost? That's minimum. It's 150 grand.
At
From
least,
memory,
yeah.
the police officers to be there cost like $200,000.
yeah,
So
and
you're already at a minimum of $300,000.
as if you wouldn't be paying nearly $100 for a Slipknot ticket anyway.
Yeah.
Because so it's like sick for 200. You get to see like a whole bunch of fucking good bands. In Flames are playing, even though like I'm In Flames' biggest #1 fan of their stuff up
the
until
old stuff.
yeah, the old stuff. Not
up until
no,
Come Clarity.
yeah, no, A Sense of Purpose is all right, but nothing past A Sense of
Yes,
Purpose.
actually, yes.
But you know, like if they play 2 old songs, if I get Jotun, I'll be like, and like I'll throw up on myself, and I'll immediately just yeet into the crowd and go crowd surfing, and I'll have a great time.
Yeah, I did a very old man thing when in one of my group chats, some of my kids were like, "Oh, who the fuck are In Flames?" I'm like, In Flames and At the Gates are responsible for every metalcore riff you hear today.
Yeah.
Every metalcore riff was one of those 2 bands, and they're like, "That sounds like something a boomer would say." It's also something that's what someone would say. I am right. It is literally everything was stolen from those 2
It's fine
bands.
for you to just tell Naz to shut the fuck up.
This wasn't Naz. This was another band. But yes, Naz would say something like that too.
Oh my god, yeah, like, I've signed up for tickets for that, but I missed out on tickets for Good Things, Good Times, Good Things, whatever. Yeah, because they were really expensive, and I have been not working. Now I am, but like, so I missed out on tickets for that. But I am most excited for Gojira and Deftones out of that lineup. I don't give a shit about any of the bands on the Good Things lineup. I was like, I'll wait for Deftones and Gojira to announce a sideshow together, because that makes no logical sense. But in my mind, it makes logical sense. Shockingly, they haven't. So now I'm trying to find some ticket scalper for Good Things so I can go see Gojira and Deftones, because let's be real, Gojira is Gojira. Gojira.
I mean, it's honestly though, that's not the most out of like the era of possibilities. There's a word there, not a scope of possibilities to put those 2 together. Realm of possibilities, because I remember like I went to a Soundwave sideshow that was Deftones, Thrice, and 18 Visions, and I feel like they're just as far apart. Like Thrice and 18 Visions are just as far apart from Deftones as Gojira. Gojira probably has more fans in common with Deftones than Thrice and 18 Visions. But I mean, who knows? I guess we'll find out. But I agree with you, Grant. I think that gets my goat as well. It's like no one. I've never seen anything where everyone's just excited for it. I don't think it's actually possible.
Yeah. Well, I've just done a quick calculation, and like, say if we go to like the price of 200 tickets, so they're doing it at Flemington Racecourse, which has a estimated capacity of I think it was 120,000, which means if they sold every ticket and 120,000 didn't include bands, space taken up by giant stages and all that stuff, they'd have a max profit before they spent any money of 24 million, which doesn't go nearly as far as you think it does when you're bringing over all these massive stage shows. It's...
I mean, Slipknot alone are taking a big chunk of that as well. I mean, like that was the whole reason why Soundwave stopped going, is because like I think they needed to sell out 3 shows just to cover costs, and then it was like the last show was any profit kind of thing. It's like the amount of risk you take on a festival like that is actually out of this world. So like for Knotfest, like probably like there's 3 shows, 2 of them will be covering costs, so the third one maybe makes some money. Like it's literally
and I'd
how
say
it goes.
the only reason why they can probably afford to have Parkway and Slipknot on it is the fact that it's Knotfest, so Slipknot's going to take less money to play it. So I remember, I think it was when Smashing Pumpkins came over, well, even Slipknot, when they came over Soundwave in 2018, they were saying that they were owed $1.2 million. That was back then. That was before they released 3 albums that hit the top of the charts.
Yeah.
So they're going to be asking at least $8 million now. You'd imagine something like that to put on their headline show with everything that they have to bring to put up their whole stage production. And
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that go into setting up a stage, and like Slipknot, 15,000 people. I don't know how many people are in Slipknot. 7,
9.
Fuck, I knew it was a prime number. So like, okay, so there's 9 people in Slipknot,
So
and
9's not a prime number, isn't it?
Yeah, but like they might all have an instrument tech.
Yeah. But also $8 million is
Oh no, 9 is
already
not a prime number.
then-
It's not
it's
a
already
number.
then 1/3 of the entire money that they could possibly make if they sold all 120,000 tickets for $200 each.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
one band. That's no stage. That's
You know what? If you want to complain about a fucking festival, put one on yourself. Good fucking luck.
That's
Yeah.
That's all, that's
Do you know how
literally
much
always been-
administration, advertising, organization, bureaucracy is involved in putting on a large event? Like
Yeah.
the organizers must have filled out a lot of forms.
That's always my attitude as well. It's like I remember like the whole reason why I started, my record label was because it was just kind of like, oh, this sucks. There should be another option for bands, a better option for bands. And I was like, well, rather than just pissing and moaning about it, why don't I give bands a better option? Why don't I just fucking do it? And like I think that's the kind of attitude you have to have. It's like, if you want a better festival, fucking do it yourself. You want better shows, do it yourself. Like there's I don't know, there's a conspiracy theory that like, there's people that have got monopolies and people that are going to try and muscle you out. People as like there's not. As someone in the industry is like there's not. They don't have enough time.
the money.
The people that are running these festivals don't have enough time to stop you from doing something. They just don't. They're too busy. They don't care. Like go and run your own thing, whatever.
Yeah. Good luck to you. Like, and after COVID, you know what? Like, I'm fucking excited to go get sick from spending a day with sweaty metalheads and take myself back to my Soundwave days of my youth. Like, yeah, I'm gonna need like a neck brace after it. All that headbanging, I'm gonna be so sore. Hiring people in advance for my neck massage. Thank you. My old age is showing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is time to get into our main beat for this episode of Balrogs and Blastbeats, and it is a very multifaceted question, but it's the question of, are we still considered the quote unquote alternative? Because alternative cultures especially in the last 15 to 20 years, really have come into the limelight. We've come out of the shadows, come out of the basements, and we've come into the limelight in, a lot of ways. You're seeing, quote unquote punks like Travis Barker, like marrying very, very famous people. Yeah, I definitely put that in quotation marks for obvious reasons. There's people that are using, like, people that dress in black and then just call themselves goths, when it's like, maybe.
Unless you know the Goths and Trees Tumblr page, you don't know what real goths were.
Yeah, if you never had a Vampire Freaks profile, you're not a real goth, is basically.
You've never listened to Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, I'm going to gatekeep the fuck out of that. But yeah, it really is the question of, are we still, after all this, are we still considered, the alternative? And I guess, like, Margy, you said you'd found a good definition for
I
alternative.
did say I found a good one. I just said I was trying to define it. So I think that's the important thing, is defining alternative culture. So I got a few different ways of putting it. And you guys can weigh in on how you think these go.
Right.
An alternative culture is a type of culture that exists outside or in the fringes of mainstream or pop culture, usually under the domain of one or more subcultures. These subcultures may have little or nothing in common besides their relative obscurity. Despite all their cultural differences, all alternative cultures follow a similar process of origination, development, and decline. They normally are formed by young working class people, or like originating from a small region or single city in response to a generally felt lack of proper fulfillment by the options available to that particular social group. So this disenchantment is in reference to like a wide range of things, it's just like a wide range of social things. So like acceptable codes of public behavior to the likelihood of a decent job and all of that kind of stuff. And the result is like a rapid evolution of an externally displayed attitude and an accompanying visual style of like art, dress, all of that, and soundtrack, which is also very important. And the factors that necessitate the creation of a subculture often forge the elements that make it unique and give it some sort of cultural legacy. So
the soundtrack, I think, especially when it refers to like goths, as I was just saying, it's like it seems like the people that are calling themselves like dressing in black and calling themselves goths at the moment, it's like they'll do that, but then they go and listen to Drake, and it's like that's Like music is such a big part, and the same with punk as well.
Yeah, especially that culture as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like punk,
absolutely.
goth, anything like that. Like it is, yeah, it is the look, but there is an attitude, and there is there is a soundtrack 100% that comes with it. You know, like
there's an outward behavior, and there's like how you interact with the world is part of a subculture, because and like subcultures when they're at their peak enjoy a lot of media attention, which is not necessarily good. Like whether it's like, the legality of their activities or their weird behaviors or their physical appearance or their anti-establishment or anti-consumerist and sex and drugs.
They play D&D.
Yeah, it's like all of these things are like, not all of them apply to all subcultures though, because there's like your straight edge like hardcore punks and stuff, and you're like,
hey,
whatever. But then if the subculture gets publicity, it'll draw more people into it. But then that can kind of stall the culture. So like since the like late 90s, alternative culture has kind of stalled in some ways, and that's largely attributed to millennials, because of the prevalence of homogenized top-down culture, which is where young people have taken to consumerism as a source of identity and recreational facility. So that runs counter to alternative culture's tradition of innovation, diversity, and communal self-sufficiency.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely true.
I think there's a way. Yeah, I think that what that says is that like the internet and millennials have had like a negative impact on like the purity of a subculture or alternative culture. Like,
well, because I guess a lot of people will jump on a wagon not because of like a genuine feel and need to be accepted into a culture or find a culture that suits you, but more to just look part of a group.
Yeah. It's like now, especially with like,
I mean, I'm just gatekeeping now by accident.
Especially with like TikTok and social media and stuff, like now, it's like, oh, look at this cool goth look. And you're like, or like this, you can buy this cool look this way. And it's like, it's much more, it's not about your behavior. It's not about your community. It's not about your, like your music or your social identity. It's just a way of, now it's about presenting yourself. It's about, I look, therefore I am. And it's like, honey.
Yeah. I don't think it's particularly gatekeeping. Is I think it's just more accepting that there is there has to be a line somewhere. So it's like, it's not like saying, if you don't listen to the Sex Pistols, you're not a punk. The Sex Pistols are one of the worst bands in the face of the fucking planet. They're
actually like the least punk band ever because they were designed to sell clothes. So
100%. They are literally consumerist at its fucking finest. And so it's like, yeah, it's not so much that, but there's like, there kind of has to be that line in the sand where it's like, you have to be this punk to ride, I guess, so to speak. But it is definitely like, as Margy was saying, it's more of an attitude thing. Like it is, I remember going and seeing Most
and
Precious
it's a community.
Absolutely. I remember going and seeing a hardcore band called Most Precious Blood play once, and they were really, really sick. There was probably only like 30 kids in the room. It was kind of awkward, but it was like, one thing that the vocalist said on stage really kind of fucking stuck with me. And he was going on a bit of a rant about how like he knows people who work 9 to 5s and wear suits every day that are more punk than anyone he's ever met. And it's like, you can still do those things as long as you have the right attitude. So obviously, like, if you're doing a 9 to 5, you've got to be fucking up the system somehow and having a bit of fun. But yeah, it's not the attitude is probably more important than anything else. And when you put a dollar sign on these cultures, you do lose that attitude. If you can just pay for the culture, then the attitude is just gone.
Yeah. Like, I like something that just popped to mind when you were saying that immediately. It's just like, I mean, I wear Docs. We're all guilty of it. Doc Martens. Fucking, that's immediate financial gatekeeping into like a particular aesthetic and look, and fashion, and it's like, but I mean, Docs are really good punk shoes, and shoes. I guess shoes just are expensive, but it's like, there's a little bit of gatekeeping that just immediately pops to mind. But but yeah, there's like lots of elements, I guess, of alternative culture that are becoming more accepted,
I guess it's
like,
also
or
hard
becoming
to
more
just.
normalized.
There's so many different alternative cultures as well. Like they're not all the same thing. Like they're not all the same cultures. There's many different versions of alternative
I'm more
culture.
focusing on thinking about this. I'm more thinking about like the nerd and metalhead community.
Yeah, okay.
Like, because I guess they're our people. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
nerd. I'm a metalhead. So like, they're my alternative cultures I identify with.
Yeah, well,
And, like-
I don't think we're going to focus too much on like Bolivian like jazz folk
Yeah.
that culture.
No,
I mean,
yeah, I guess
God
it's
damn it! I gotta throw all my notes out.
thriving culture.
I guess it's like is there just putting forward to the listeners that distinguishing alternative cultures with like people who listen to metal or like not metal but like alternative music, rock and stuff like that, and not like counterculture, which it is a separate thing because it comes in many different ways. You're talking like a Tumblr Tumblr alternative.
Yeah, there's it's a hard one to define, but like,
but I think there's a really good example going around at the moment of like, because I was thinking about, like I was saying earlier, about there is a line that sort of exists, and once you kind of cross the line, you go from being like, whether it's like I don't want to say poser, but like a casual fan or whatever it is, or someone sort of like lost in that, to like actually being a nerd or being a punk. And then like, I think it's the more I was thinking about the line, the more interesting I kind of found it. Like, to use the example of Star Wars and Star Trek, both are sci-fi, but I feel like Star Trek is more nerdy. Like, I think it's more socially acceptable
100%.
to like Star Wars and stuff. But it's like, the question then is why? Like, why is
marketing?
I mean, it may just be that. It could 100% just be marketing. Like, it could be that side of things. It's like, yeah, but why is the Star Trek fan seen as more of a, like, so are you like that? Oh, you're a nerd. Whereas like Star Wars is just like, it became, they were both big phenomenons, and Star Wars is probably more like mainstream successful than Star Trek. But it's like, I wondered if it was because as well, like Star Trek to me seems more focused on the nerdy details, so like focused on the details of the world and
the
like the
physics,
science. The science of the world. Because then the other example that immediately came to mind is the difference between and Margy, I know it's not that great, but the difference between the Game of Thrones world and the Wheel of Time world. The Wheel of Time feels more nerdy. It feels like they've gone deeper into the lore, deeper into the religion, deeper into the fantasy. Whereas like Game of Thrones is like, it's fantasy and there are dragons, but it is just sex, death, violence. Guts, gore.
I do have some notes on that, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Go on, please.
Because like we'll thinking about like nerdy stuff that's kind of in the mainstream, like Marvel movies are fucking blockbusters now, and Game of Thrones and stuff. Like there's I think it's a different level of participation as well. Like some people like Game of Thrones for like George R.R. Martin's nuances and world building and the way that he writes and the plots and whatnot, but like, and they might be like more into the Song of Ice and Fire than they are into the Game of Thrones. There's a distinction, books best show. But some people like it, I think, because it was popular, because it crossed that line and it had sex and violence and plot twists and people kept getting killed, and it wasn't your traditional fantasy world, like, oh my God, they were swearing. That king said fuck. Like, and it was a fantasy world, but it wasn't a real high fantasy world. Like it's a very similar, believable world. It was just like medieval Europe, plus there were a couple of dragons, and it didn't really go into like aspects of like, it didn't, and then oh yeah, that's right, there were like these shadow creaturey things. Oh no, like, and it was just culturally acceptable to like it. Like I think it was. I'm curious to see. I mean, it's hard to gauge now after the ending, but I'm curious to see like if in 30 years' time it's like still a cultural norm to know about Game of Thrones and stuff, or if it's just like if it's had a lasting impact. Because I'm so used to being surrounded though by people who are like nerds, like, you know, like who are into like nerdy stuff and in that nerd alternative. And I was shocked when my coworker was just like, "Oh, I don't like fantasy and that stuff." And I was like, because I said I'd watch Star Wars on the weekend, and he's like, "I don't like fantasy and stuff," and I was like,
What do you do?
"What?" And I was like, man, some people are so weird. Like in my head, I was like, what the fuck are wrong with people? How could you not like Star Wars? Like, how could you think Star Wars is fantasy? I mean, it's like space fantasy.
It's sci-fi.
Anyway, but I didn't say
different.
anything to him, but I was like, how do you not, what do you enjoy? What do you like in life? Like, and he's like, oh, like, and started talking about like some show that was on Netflix. And I was like, oh my God, is this, oh my God, just like, and it wasn't a cool, weird show or anything. It was just like a normal show. And I was like, what is this?
To be fair, I am also a lover of trash TV, and I
same.
I love awful reality TV shows. Like whenever a new season of like Love Is Blind or something comes out, my partner and I, we smash it. We binge watch everything. We just binge watch The Mole. Just all about reality TV.
Oh, my housemate last night put on the Essex show. The reality show that's set at Essex. And I lasted about 5 minutes, and then I was like, no.
Nah, that's too much for me. Like just people in a house going out. It has to be like a game aspect of it, or like a goal.
Oh yeah.
Like if there's no goal for me, I can't do it. But yeah, like Geordie Shore and all that, it's not for me.
Nah, but like, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, I like trash TV, but like, I don't know. So I don't know. Like, I guess the thing is though, with like nerdy things that are in pop culture, it's like, it's the level of commitment. It's the difference between someone who's like, oh yeah, I really like the Marvel movies, and then someone who's like, I prefer like the blah blah comic about Iron Man, or like I really found like who've got strong opinions about like the Marvel universe, who have like who go above and beyond, and they start immersing themselves and start thinking, and then just not just they engage with it. They don't just consume, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's like I thought about an example of a person that I think kind of comes back to this sort of line. If we use Magic the Gathering as the example, like yeah, Magic the Gathering is popular, but it is definitely on the nerd side of things. Like it's
oh, absolutely.
It's so detailed that it's never going to be mainstream, in so to speak. And then we look at Post Malone. So Post Malone, I was never really a fan of when his music first came out. I was like, yeah, cool, just another SoundCloud rapper. I started paying attention to him when it was announced that he was going to be doing like a Nirvana cover set with Travis Barker. They were raising money for this food bank thing. And I was like, interesting, I'll check it out. And he was fucking incredible. Like his normal singing voice is so raw. It's so gritty. He fucking nailed everything about it. Like the whole set was amazing. I was like, oh, you're actually an interesting human being. And then a little bit afterwards, he did 2 country songs with Dwight Yoakam's band, who like Dwight Yoakam's band don't just play with anyone. They're not, even if it's fucking
Who's Dwight Yoakam?
One of the best country music singers ever. Like he's amazing.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, he did 2 of my favorite country songs, and again, he fucking nailed them. And I kind of realized is like in the music world, Post Malone has a lot of power. Like if his next album was like fucking, it sounded like Nevermind, or it sounded like fucking Dwight Yoakam, Sturgill Simpson. Like if it sounded country, like he could change the face of pop music. But his effect on Magic the Gathering, while yeah, he's probably convinced some people to play it, I don't think he hasn't changed the game. He hasn't brought in like millions of new fans. Like it's very much like he's come into our world, but it's like I find it interesting that that's a really good definition of the line, because he can have power in this world, in the pop world, but he doesn't have like there's a line that like his fans just won't follow him to.
Yeah, and I guess that again comes down to like the engage versus consume. You can't get into Magic the Gathering without engaging in it. You've got to actively play. Even if you're borrowing someone's deck, like I'm too poor, I can't afford Magic cards. But like even if you're just borrowing someone's deck, you still have to open yourself to learn something, to play it. Like it's like people who are like, oh, I don't really like board games, and you're like, or like you talk about like Settlers of Catan, and they're like, oh no, that's real nerdy, and you're like, no, it's fucking not. It's like it's a board, like you roll dice and you buy sheep, like it's
a little bit.
it's a little nerdy, but like it's
as far as role playing board games go, it's not that nerdy.
yeah, exactly. As far as role playing board games go, it could be a lot worse. And you guys
this is
are like
vanilla ice cream.
yeah, like but the music thing's interesting. Like I at my old job, one of the people I used to work with was obsessed with Youngblood, who I'd never heard because I was like pop music, like fucking I just avoid that scene because you know. And so they put him on and I was like, is this just like Oasis pop punk? Like I was just like this like I was, and they were just like, oh, he's a musical genius, like his genre is so cool, and it's like, oh my god, and he just speaks to me, and I was like, this is just pop punk. I can show you like 1,000 bands that sound exactly like this, but like I didn't. I was like, oh, okay, cool, and they were like, oh my god, he was so punk, like he broke his tooth at the start of the set, but still played the whole set. I was like, yeah, it's. Wow, never seen someone covered in blood at a rock show before.
Hey, you want to see someone covered in shit?
Do you want to go to a club where people wee on each other? Because
you'd really like this guy called Gigi Allen. He's exactly like him. Sure.
Yeah, exactly the same vibe. Real creative genius.
Yeah.
But like, oh, and like, but I guess like the subject matter of like heavy and alternative music is more different than what pop music is about. Like pop music is normally about having a good time on the weekend or falling in love or heartbreak or
that's it.
But you know, like wherein, you know, heavy or alternative music can cover such a span of things.
Including all the stuff just said, or, you know, being upset about the weekend rather than being happy about it.
It explores a range of emotions beyond the simple.
Sorrow, murdering your neighbor, comically murdering your neighbor.
Coming blood, things like that. You know,
yeah, exactly. Really important. Really important.
Or it could just be
stuff.
basically like 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's an album. You can do,
which is sick. You can
do whatever you want. To be honest, you could, you know, you write a whole album about Homer's Odyssey, Iliad. Sorry, whichever one. I can't remember.
Why not?
I'm not ancient Greco-Roman.
But staying on the idea of that line, like Grant, as someone who's in an extreme metal band and plays a certain level of metal that probably is not going to be, it's going to continue to be alternative. Where do you think the line is in metal? Like what takes it from being like like Parkway Jovi, as we just said, to fucking, you know, aborted, so to speak?
I feel like when you get to that level, it becomes more of a musician's music. It's like musicians writing music for other musicians in a way. Because that's like, if I go to like a real like technical death metal concert, I usually see people from other bands there. Like I'm not seeing like there's punters as well, but usually like you're just seeing people from other bands there that like that kind of music. Like I feel like there's just, it's like something you just probably don't understand, honest. Like it's not like the thing that, you know, gravitates you to that makes it impressive probably isn't as impressive. Say if like Aborted, for example, like if I, you know, didn't understand like the technicality of the drums, you know, it's one thing to understand it, but also because I understand it, but also enjoy it, then that gravitates me to go see that band. Whereas like, I don't think there's really like heaps of people out there that just love 280 BPM blast beats and like insane guitar things for the sake of it. Like there's not many people out there just like that without context. If anything, listening to that without context sounds like nothing. And I understand why.
Well,
no one likes it.
I did find a Reddit forum because I was trying to look into like neurodivergence and mental health and stuff, and which I definitely think has something to do here. But we'll get into
yeah, every person I know in a band like that is
like it's not whether you. It's because I do know people who like that music who don't play music, like, but they generally have, in my opinion, like they're not your easy music listener. Like you don't just go like, oh yeah, I listen to music once a week, and when I do, I listen to like Napalm Death or like, you know, like you're a kind of person who's got strong opinions about a variety of music, and you and they're people who appreciate music a bit more than your
it's
regular
music that needs
punter.
context. Like it can't be listened to without context.
But also like yeah, and someone put this really well on this Reddit forum. It said, in all seriousness, coming from someone with ADHD, it provides enough layers so that our brains don't get bored. And the lyrics are also deeper in general and more descriptive or poetic, which hits right in the PTSD, anxiety, depression side of my brain. Sometimes it's all we can do to hold on, and having well thought out music is a serious help. Which I really liked, because it was talking about like, do autistic people only like death metal? Because this person was like, what? I'm autistic and all my friends who are autistic like death metal. And I'm like, maybe all your friends just like death metal and that's the connection. But like, I think it was a really interesting point that like people maybe with more complex things going on in their brains can appreciate more complex music going on, you know?
Well, I'd say like because I mostly listen to death metal. Like I like other bands, like Smashing Pumpkins is one of my favorite bands, but death metal gives me a different kind of energy. Like it gives like I listen to it for energy more than like for like say if I was sad, like I'm not gonna listen to death metal. It's not gonna do it. Like I'll listen to Smashing Pumpkins. You know, put Zero on or something. You know, get some self-loathing going on. I feel like. Yeah, it gives me an energy listening to that music because I guess all the stuff going on, you know, is like such high tempo and stuff like that. I guess, you know, if you're listening to like a slower like beat down or something, but then again, to me, that's completely different side of the spectrum. And I feel like different people listen to that music because it's entirely different.
Hey,
But
I've got my beat downs for when I'm feeling beat down playlist, and I like fucking heavy as shit. And I'm like, breakdown. Like,
that's what I mean. Like it's a different style of music for a different context. But if you don't know the context, it all sounds the same. It's the same as like house music and trance music. Like if you don't know the context of it, you can't tell the difference. It all sounds the same.
But that was always my favorite thing about dance music because, like, I don't think I've admitted it on this podcast, but like I used to be like a proper dance DJ when I was like 15 through 21. I used to like play at a lot of clubs and whatnot. And it was always my argument when everyone's like, oh, dance music's just so repetitive. I was like, when it comes to DJing, every single dance song at like a club mix level, not like a radio mix level, but at a club mix level, changes every 32 beats. That's the whole point of it's all built on that idea is that every 32 beats, the song changes, whether it's just like adding a hat and then there's another 32 beats and then it adds another snare and then at 32 beats, it adds like a synth or something like that. And so anytime I'd be like, oh, it's repetitive. I was like, it's actually technically the most like
antithesis of that.
Mm-hmm.
It has laws about how it has to change. Apart from techno is a very different thing as like a genre itself. But how like house music, trance music, like hard dance, all that sort of stuff, it has to change every 32 beats because that's how they're like mix two songs together, and so when you're playing them at the same time, they're changing at the same time, so you like DJ them through. So it was always my kind of argument.
Wow.
Well,
I can DJ now.
Yeah.
I can DJ now. Yeah, I've learned the secret.
that's the whole.
Giving
That's
me the
it.
keys.
I'm ready.
But Margy, I think you put in this note. It's like like asking about Gen Z being so embracing and into everything, and is that why it's like these quote unquote alternative cultures are becoming more accepting? And I was like, it's curious whether it's. I mean, it probably is part of that. Like, I feel like they were given the right information at the right time, but I think it's also probably the fact that like it's not so much alternative because it's also it's all this generation's ever known now. It's like all they know is tattoos, and like everyone has tattoos now, so it's just kind of become accepted.
Normal.
Like,
yeah.
it's like when our parents were our age, it wasn't like, it's just like people just didn't have them, and so it's like people who did have them, it's like, oh, it's different, it's weird, it's kind of. So yeah, I wonder if that trajectory is going to lead to just, because that was the other thing you said, is that kind of like, it kind of builds up and then drops off again and builds up and drops off. It's like, will there be a drop off, and what does that drop off actually look like?
Well, I think the example we can see
QAnon,
is that it's like, I mean, you and I, Josh, Grant, you're too young, maybe. The thousands and tens hardcore kid phase of that's why I've got really giant ear holes, and the scene fringes and shit like that. That's
I'm old enough to remember that. I just cool
was
enough
just
to not
being mean.
participate in it.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, that's why you don't have giant fucking holes through your ears. Smart move.
No, I just took it out.
Just little baby one.
It was 30 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
So was I. That was me being Josh. But like, I don't know. Like, Gen Zers can't be fucking trusted. They dress in early 2000s clothing, and honestly, we fought really hard to get rid of the low-rise gene. That was a huge cultural gain for us, and now it's
coming back.
It's fucking back. And like, I think I'm curious to see what follows Gen Z, like
Coontails
and stuff. But like, bring it back. I'm ready. But like, I'm just really curious to see like because to me it just feels like it's all about the outward aesthetic. It's like it's all about like, yeah, there are some amazing Gen Z kids out there, don't get me wrong, and like they've also
thank you so much.
They've been brought into the they've been raised the right way in terms of like people fighting for recognition of like climate change and people fighting for recognition of injustice and stuff, like social injustices. They're a lot more aware of that, but they're also
vapid.
Yeah, it's really weird. I get this feeling that like they're hyper aware but hyper vapid as well at the same time. Like it's like this real dissonance kind of thing where you gotta put out the right vibes, like, but yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's a product of the internet, though. I'd imagine because like you've basically like since they've had a phone in their hands, and they've probably had a phone in their hands since they were 12. Like imagine like through high school, like when you're trying to like date people and all that as like a adolescence, you're basically doing the same version of that but on the internet. Like you're essentially from like 13, you've decided to like put yourself on the market in a way. But that you've done that through Instagram, and like that's like would become such a large part of your personality of like how you're viewed on this platform to do with your own self-confidence, because they've melded in that fucked up way just because that's the way society was going.
Hey, I had MySpace when I was 15. I'm cool.
Yeah, but even like MySpace, even Instagram, like 10 years ago, like how many people were like, were posting all the stuff on Instagram because they're trying to get someone else's attention, and that's so much further interweaved into the culture of younger people these days, and I reckon that's probably got a large thing to do with it.
Yeah,
I also, but like, don't get me wrong, like my generation as well is definitely still guilty of it. It's just absolutely. Any internet users generation, but like I think what being alternative really is, it's about having a different mindset and approach to the world, a different worldview than regular people. Like, I don't fucking know what normies do, but I don't fucking understand them. Anyway, so like you're a person who thinks differently and you think deeper than your basic human. Like, and that's what really defines the culture. And it's about being passionate and driven about what you care about and going for that. Like living for more than just your 9-to-5 job, and then going to after work drinks on Friday, and oh my god, weekend brunch and Instagram posts. Like you live alternatively when you're living for you, not like posting pics of your last holiday to the Amalfi Coast, being like, bring me back. Oh my God, can't wait for November this year and my overseas trip. Like, it's I don't know, it's pursuing your passions, whether it's painting or fantasy or Magic the Gathering or binging the entire 20 billion episodes of an anime series, like, or writing music or listening to music, like whatever it is, like you find that and you live for that. You don't live to participate in normal society. You live to participate in what you want. Like, and I think that's the difference. It's, you don't care as much about the fitting in. You care more about fitting in what you want.
I love that. I reckon that's the perfect answer. I reckon that answers the question, Margy. There you go.
Put it on a mug.
Thank you.
Yeah, right on a mug. 100%. I'd probably leave the question on that note. I think that's a great note to leave it on. I reckon that's a wonderful way to kind of wrap up that question. If I was still the alternative, the answer, Margy says, is both yes and no. Basically.
I think the alternative is live your fucking truth.
Yeah.
And
the needle moves.
You know what? Like, my dad's a fucking alternative person. He's a super weirdo. He participates in Naked Farmer Day, where he rides around on the cherry picking naked. He rides motorbikes. He likes surfing. He really likes animals. But he really likes steak. I don't know. Like, he drinks beer, but he also enjoys a nice glass of whiskey. Falls asleep on the couch. I don't know. That's living your truth. And I think he's just an old punk. And I'm like, that's great. Good for you,
Fuck yeah,
Dad.
man.
You know what? Be like Margy's dad. Ride around your cherry picker naked. But I don't know. Can you tell us like what you guys think too? Like what is being alternative to you? Like, because
I don't think I can sum it up better than you just did. I think that's it. It's like, yeah, it's living for a personal truth. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like this is what the world is telling you to do. This is what the world is telling you to be. This is what the world is saying. This is the truth. And it's saying, well, I'm gonna live my truth. I'm gonna say like my truth doesn't align with that. And so I'm on the alternative. But yeah, I think you summed it up better than I could, to be honest.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I think if you are neurodivergent or something, like you've experienced mental health like illness or something as well, I think that's just one way that shifts your worldview, and that's a large reason why you do see an overrepresentation or a higher representation of people on the spectrum, etc., in alternative cultures, because we just have a shifted focus, like, and that just changes things, like, and that's why. Also, don't look up heavy metal music and neurodivergence, because apparently it's not vaccines now that cause neurodivergence, it's heavy metal poisoning. So
yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
As in the music, or just lead in the water pipes?
Lead in the water pipes, but that's their new theory anyway. That's not true. People just have differences in their brains.
They reckon that's what caused a lot of the serial killers, because it apparently makes you more aggressive.
No, it's psychopathy. It's like, you're just a fucking psychopath and you kill people. Ay. Anyway, that's my rant. I thought about this.
I can tell. And we're going to move in, dear listener, to the final beat, the Friday question. Every Friday on the Northside Nerds socials, on Instagram and on TikTok, we post a question. We put it out to you for a bit of a vibe, and we it's a throwback to an earlier question. We did this question about dogs, but now we're going to do it about a different topic in the world. So it's like, who is the best? who is your favorite robot in pop culture? And maybe like Grant, let's start with you. Who is
going to be your robot sidekick on your
flying
adventure?
By the hands of my seat here, whatever you'd call that saying.
The hands of my seat.
Yeah.
The seat of your pants, I believe.
I believe it is flying by the hands of your seat.
Yeah, we're going with hands of your seat.
That's it. Yeah. So I have got nothing prepared for this, because as you both know, I essentially walked out of work and onto this podcast today. So
doing God's work.
Favorite robots, like Bender is up there, and it's the first one that comes to mind.
Would he be a good sidekick?
Absolutely, be the best sidekick. I could not imagine having more fun than with someone like Bender.
That's fair.
That's
for better or for worse. Like, there's going to be a lot of bad times, but like, there's going to be a lot of good times. There's going to be heaps of good times. Yeah, I'm going to go with Bender.
I don't know how good it'd be at setting up IKEA furniture. I think it'd just bend everything out of shape.
No, that's fine. I can do that. That's my basically my enslavement in this home anyway. So, how about you, Margy?
Mine's a tough toss up. There we go. Glitched
hands
a little.
in my seat.
Fly by the seat of my hands. It's got to be R2D2 or BB-8. Like, because they're both real cute little sidekicks. They don't talk too much, but they do listen and understand. They have sassy comebacks, from what I can tell, and they are really good at getting up to mischief. I'd say my cat would probably knock over R2D2, so I'm going to go BB-8 just because it seems to be more resilient to being battered by a cat. But like, I feel like BB-8 would come in handy. I'd be like, oh, I've got my meds, and then it'll just like roll up to the chemist and get them for me. Probably just steal them, but that's all right. Wanted robot criminal. I reckon BB-8's where it's at. Yeah.
This is how you know you're too much of a practical thinker. As soon as you said R2D2, I had to look up how wide he was. So I'm like, oh, could I have R2D2, or is he too wide to fit through my doorways?
Do you know what they call him in Spanish?
Little Arturo, yeah.
Arturio, which is
Arturo.
Arturio, which means little Arthur, because
Yeah.
it sounds kind of like R2D2. It's really cute.
So cute.
What do you reckon, Josh? Who's your robot sidekick?
I mean, you've both had fantastic choices, and I would agree with either of those. And like Bender would be 100% heaps of fun, but because I don't drink, I'm like, maybe not.
Knight Rider.
R2D2 would be great because you'd have like a fucking you'd basically have like a little Inspector Gadget at your side at all times.
Yeah.
It kind of has just something for everything. I don't know why, but and this is probably like the real like pathetic spurg inside of me, but when I was a kid, I always wanted to be friends with Data from Star Trek because I found him to be real spurgy as well, and like real curious and confused about like he knew so many things, but he was so like lost and confused. And I feel like me and Data would be really, really good friends. And
I would pay to watch that show. Yeah,
I love him. I really do. I think he's such a wonderful robot, and so I'm going to go with Data because I always wanted to be Data's friend ever since I was a kid. And I think that's pathetic and sad, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Honestly, when you
so
said
at all.
pathetic and sad, I thought you were going to go somewhere way worse. Like, be like Fry and be like, oh, I pick a Lucy Lou bot or some shit like that.
Lucy Lou bot.
I thought you were just going to pick a Transformer, but
I couldn't even think of that.
I didn't think of that till just then, and I'm like, fuck.
That'd be my problem. Is that I couldn't pick a Transformer. Like I probably want to say Hot Rod, but like the cartoon Hot Rod, not the movie Hot Rod, because Hot Rod was ruined in the fourth or fifth film he was in, wasn't he?
Oh,
Yeah,
let's not go into the films.
So fucking bad in that. Yeah, like Bumblebee in the cartoon, I probably wouldn't want to. Yeah, I feel like it would be either Hot Rod or Cup, because Cup was the grumpy old man and he was always lots of fun.
Blackout. It's got to be Blackout.
Yeah, Blackout was fun. Yeah, no, it'd be too
Optimus
hard.
I don't know if you'd like being my sidekick. I'm probably not evil enough to be Blackout sidekick. I would be like, oh, what do you want to do? Say, oh, man, I would love to fly around in you if being a helicopter. He's like, let's go shoot some innocents. I'm like, I don't know.
You're like, no. Maybe not.
But dear listener, we need to know who do you think who is your favorite robot in pop culture and why? Every Friday on the Northside Nerds Instagram, on the TikTok, I'll post the little clip of us telling you why, and I need to know why you picked the one that you've picked. So follow at Northside Nerds on Instagram, on TikTok. The links will be in the show notes.
Social media,
social media.
Relevant.
We're so good at it.
Yeah, the podcast is now officially an adult. This is episode 21. I know I've been pointing out the numbers of the episodes over the last couple of weeks, but it's exciting. We've gotten
We're still going
into the 20s. We're still going, having fun with it.
20 weeks.
Yeah.
21 weeks.
Shout out to you for supporting us. Tell a friend that you think might enjoy it, and ask them if there's still alternative as well.
Yeah, ask them if there's. Are you even a punk man? Are you even cool?
Name 3 subcultures.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're a punk. Name 3 punks.
I love it. And go listen to a song called
Sub-Caspian Shoemaker.
Yeah. I'll leave you, if you're naming punks, and I'll leave you with this. Go and listen to a band called Chopper One. They have a song called A Punk Named Josh, and it's a good time.
Is it about you?
No, because the chorus is literally, he was a punk named Josh and he really was an asshole. And so I don't think it's about me.
Maybe.
I mean, it's possibly about
I
me.
mean,
You have to be decided.
Did they send you a demo and you didn't play on Short, Fast, Loud?
No, I randomly came across this band when I was like 13, so it was a little bit before my radio career.
So they just knew that. They just knew
at the start of my radio career, I found this.
I was like, I'm pretty sure you had a radio career at 13, and yes, you did. There you go.
It was when I just started, but I don't think I ever played that song on the air. So maybe I'll play that on my very last Short, Fast, Loud. That'll be like the last song that I play before I leave. I'll be like, peace out. Here's a song about me. That'd actually be pretty funny, to be honest.
There we go. We're now your creative advisors. I'll take 100% of all your profits.